This is Lesson 2, Understanding the Workspace. So when you first open Adobe Premiere Pro, you're going to be presented with a welcome screen. And unlike in other Adobe applications, you actually have to deal with the welcome screen first. If you try to close the welcome screen by pressing the exit button, it actually exits the entire program. So in Premiere Pro, you actually have to create a new project first. If you're used to other applications like Photoshop, Illustrator, even Adobe After Effects, this will be unusual for you. The reason you have to create a new project first is because when Premiere Pro is working, it sometimes has to create preview files and has to create temporary files. And it needs some place to store that information. That's why you make a project. So the first thing I'll do is click New Project. I'm going to name this one 0201 after the lesson we're working on. I'm going to browse, and I'm actually going to put this on my desktop. I'm going to leave all the other settings as I find them. Most of the settings control how the timeline and the interface display. The video setting, for example, chooses whether my timeline is going to display as timecode or as feet and frames when I'm working with actual film, or as frames only. Audio controls how the audio format displays, and normally I'm going to use audio samples, though technically audio is often displayed as milliseconds when working in pure audio programs, but in Premiere Pro, audio samples can be very helpful. Capture is mostly an antiquated system. If I'm working with an old tape-based system, Capture controls how video that's captured from a tape is going to be interpreted, whether it's DV, digital video, or HDV, high definition digital video. But if you're working with a modern tape-less format, you can completely ignore the capture setting. Scratch disks control where captured files and audio and video previews are stored. Normally, they're stored in the same location as your project file, though if you wanted to, you actually could create a new folder on a different hard drive and store them there. The one setting that I didn't address so far is the video rendering and playback. Adobe Premiere Pro uses the Mercury playback engine to give you smooth playback of audio and video files. Specifically, it's really helpful for working with high definition digital video files. Your choices here are software only or GPU acceleration. If you have a compatible video card, GPU acceleration will be turned on automatically. If you don't, the only choice is software only. So this option is always set to the highest possible one you can use. GPU acceleration will give you smoother playback, but even software only does enhance your playback and preview capability. So I'll click OK, and it's going to open Premiere Pro for me. Now, Premiere Pro's interface is called the Workspace. You can access various workspace settings from the Window command, Window Workspace. The default workspace is called Editing, but there are other workspaces here that you can control. Audio, for example, brings the audio editing options to the forefront. Effects. The Effects workspace is intended primarily when you're going to work with effects, and the features that allow you to add effects, the Effects panel, and edit effects, the Effect Controls panel, become more prominent. There's even, if you're used to older versions of Premiere Pro, there's even an older editing workspace called Editing 5.5. This sets the workspace so that it's closer to what older versions of Premiere Pro used as their editing workspaces. I'm going to return back to the editing workspace. The default editing workspace is designed to give you a very large area for working with your source monitor, which is where you preview your video clips and audio clips, and your program monitor, which is showing you whatever will be on your timeline. Now, in the editing workspace, there are panels that you may not always need. For example, if all you want to do is editing, a lot of people find that a large source monitor, a large program monitor, and a large timeline are extremely helpful. What I'd like to do is change the configuration of this workspace. So I definitely need a source monitor, I definitely need the program monitor, and I need the timeline. I'm also going to need the tools. Additionally, I'll need the project panel because the project panel is where I import all of the media that I want to work with here. But there are other panels that may not be necessary for a simple editing job. So I'm going to change them. I'm going to move the project panel so that it's docked with the program monitor. As you click on any panel and move it around, you'll see that you have these drop zones that appear on your destination where you want to drop or move the panel. The side of the drop zones, either left or right, if you release your mouse there, will create a new column. Top and bottom of a drop zone will create a new row. And in the middle, we'll dock the two panels together. The panel interface is docked so that you can move one dividing line and change the size of your panels. So you have a great deal of control over the interface itself. Now, let's say that you don't want to display certain panels. Let's say I want to close Media Browser. I can click on Media Browser. There's a small little close icon, and I can click it, the little X. And I can close effects, I'll close markers, and history as well. That actually forces my Tools panel to become really large. So I'm going to click on the dividing line between Tools and Timeline, and I'm going to slide the timeline to the left so that it becomes really large. Tools will, of course, shrink. So now I have a large source monitor, a large program monitor. I've got the project panel docked with the program monitor because very rarely will I need to see project and program monitors simultaneously. But I will need to see project and source so that I can import my clips into project and then preview them in the source monitor. And now I have a really long, large timeline to make it easier to work with my video footage. The timeline is usually very important because it's where you do most of your editing. I like this workspace. I'd like to save it. Window, Workspace, New Workspace allows me to save this workspace. I'm just going to name it My Editing. And click OK. Now if I look in the workspace menu, I'll see My Editing, and it's active. If I return to the editing workspace, the default editing workspace, I'll notice nothing changes. Since I started off in the editing workspace and then I modified it, even though I saved it as a new workspace, the original editing workspace does not automatically reset. I have to choose Window, Workspace, Reset Current Workspace when I'm in editing. It'll ask me, am I sure? I'll say yes. But I have to choose that Reset Current Workspace command to return the editing workspace to its original default configuration. So now I have the original out-of-the-box editing workspace, and I also have My Editing. So you can easily create new workspaces to match your specific project. You can change them however you like, and you have absolute and total control over the interface. You may find that the developers didn't foresee a use that you may come up with. That's why making your own custom workspaces is very important. The more you experiment with the program, the more you work with the program, the more you use it, the more you'll realize that certain panels are very commonly used for certain tasks, and other panels may not be as necessary. Creating a custom workspace allows you to streamline what you're viewing and really let you take control of the application.